Greetings from the road. It's Friday evening. We had a great dinner out at the Ford restaurant. Is that what it was here in Lakeside?
Garage, yeah.
Ford's Garage. They're a franchise and they're in Detroit. For those who've been there, you know what it's like. We had a good dinner. Uh, Pat's here. He's on the right. Candy's on the left. And their dog Sammy is in Candy's lap. And they don't think it's anything exceptional, but I do think it's something exceptional because earlier today I loaded up a 38 Ford Custom Deluxe in my trailer, and it's a donated vehicle to the Early Ford V8 Foundation Museum, and they generously donated their time and their resources to go down and bring it up so I could pick it up here and save a trip. And I want them to talk about how they got in the hobby and why they are helping out the Early Ford V8 Foundation Museum, but more importantly, why they find car clubs so necessary and vital to their enjoyment of the hobby. So with that, I'll let them just tell you about their history with their Fords and what they currently own, and I'll turn it over to them.
Well, my interest in the cars started in high school, and in study hall, looking at hot rod magazines and so on and so forth. And I was always into street rods and hot rods and so on and so forth. And my first car was a 38 Plymouth Coupe, and I bought when I was 13. And I think I gave $75 for it. And my interest grew from there. And I've always been into hot rods and 32 Fords primarily. And I have a 32 Ford street rod, 32 Ford sedan that Candy and I drove on our first date together.
Oh, wow. You still have that car?
I still have the car.
Wow.
We've had it for about 35 years. And we drove it on our honeymoon. And we still have the car. It's in the garage up in Ohio right now. I have driven it to Florida a few times. And But I've since I was into the 32 Fords, I got to thinking, what did the originals look like? How did they drive, and so on and so forth. So I got into the original 32 Fords, and got interested in that era. And so we bought a 1932 Ford Roadster that someone had restored. It came from the Xenia, Ohio area, and it was funny, we were looking to, someone told us about a car that they had put together, or they have parts to put together in Hawaii, and I don't fly anywhere, I'm scared to death of flying. And this was in Hawaii, it was in pieces, and I thought, we might do this. And then the very next day, someone told me about a car 17 miles from my house.
And I missed out on my Hawaii trip.
So you were looking forward to going to Hawaii, and as often the case, you're willing to go to Hawaii, and you find a lead on a car 17 miles from where you live.
That's correct.
And I never got to go to Hawaii.
No, never have been to Hawaii. And anyway, 17 miles from my house in Xenia, Ohio, we found a 32 Ford Roadster. It was all restored. It had been sitting in the garage for 8 or 10 years. I think it had 50 miles on the odometer after he restored it. And we bought that, and it was a Model B, it had a 4-cylinder. It was a beautiful car. And we got interested in going to shows and seeing other original cars, and that's I think the first people we ran into was at July 4th show in Xenia, Ohio. We ran into Lynn and Marianne Ewing. They had a 34 Ford sedan there, and these were the first folks we ran into in our car club. Mm-hmm. And they told us about the Early Ford V8 Club and the local region 141. And it was 1997, 1998. And we joined the club and been members ever since. And of course, from that time on, we picked up other cars and so on and so forth. But boy, the camaraderie we have in the car club, just the things we've got to do is to travel to the national meets and so on and so forth, and meet other people that with like interests. It's been fascinating and quite fulfilling. And we've got friends in the club that we've been friends with for 25 years now, and we do a lot of things together, and we really enjoy that part of it. And of course, we have meetings, once a month, most of the time, and along with meetings, we get to eat. We have a lot of food and so on and so forth. So we like that part of it. But
Is this the club, I think Candy had mentioned at dinner, because this is interesting. Most people come to winter in Florida earlier, but you choose December because your car club has a Christmas event, right? That
That's
you
correct.
you go and you do that, and you have an early Christmas and you exchange gifts. So you celebrate even Christmases together as the car club, which puts your vacation down to Florida, your winter down to Florida a little bit late. Most people are already down here, by that time. You make that a point to get together every year. Has COVID been tough on you the past year or so, not being able to get together like you normally do?
Yeah, we only had 2 or 3 meetings this last
Just
year.
2 or 3 for,
Two
and
people were too afraid to come.
that was in 2020.
yeah, 2020, we had 2 or 3 meetings, and we tried to we all masked up. Tried to follow the CDC guidelines as much as we could. We still had good camaraderie, good visitations and good meetings and good food, by golly. And but it was just great getting together, and you really don't know how much you miss these people.
Yeah.
You're restricted from seeing them
Yep.
and doing those things. And you realize how many friends you've that you have, and
We've met people from all over the country through the Early Ford
the
Club.
Early Ford Club is it's been great. We go to national meets, and we have a lot of friends in a
Met a
lot of areas.
friends through the 32 Fords too.
Yeah, a lot of friends that have like interest in the 32 Fords and so on and so forth, and people we still communicate with today. And the Ford Foundation is when they first started that in Auburn. It was, of course, the foundation was a dream of Jerry Wendell's, who was the editor of the VA Times before the Early Ford Club. And this is a dream come true, and there's a lot of hands in it. A lot of heads went together to make this dream come true. And I can remember years ago, I forget what year it was, but the Early Ford Foundations had a collection before we had a museum, and these collections were stored in various museums throughout the country. A couple that I can think of right away would be the Don Garlits Museum in Ocala. We had a lot of memorabilia there, signs, Ford signs, and so on and so forth. And we had things in the Town Museum in Sacramento, San Francisco area. And I remember we took 2 or 3 trailers to Ocala one spring to pick up all that memorabilia and take home. And I know Ron Stauffer was involved with that, and Lynn Ewing, and gosh, I know I'm going to leave people out there. Bill Tyndall was instrumental in that, and a lot of other things. But anyway, I remember we took all that stuff back to Indiana and up to Auburn, and they were just finishing up building the museum, the phase 1 of the museum. And we got back before we took things out of the trailers and stuff. I remember going in with the other guys and sweeping dust off the floor, and the concrete dust and everything, and gagging and so on and so forth. We got all that out, and I remember driving the first vehicle into the museum, which was a beautiful restored 8N tractor, and that was donated to the museum. And everything is donated to the museum. The generosity of the Ford people, just everybody has just been tremendous. And that's what makes the museum, is all the people helping out, not only in labor and the people that are willing to step up and be officers and so on and so forth. And Ohio Region 141, our club, has been really involved in doing a lot of that work and making this possible. And not only them, we have Indiana had a couple of regions that helped out, 56 and 169 there locally, and
In 69.
in '69. That there's several regions, and with all these regions, there's real people involved with each of these clubs, and you get to work with these people, and it's we've become a lot of us become good friends over the years, and it's just a tremendous thing that has been going on with, and the foundation is helping to pull this together, and it's still growing. And as a matter of fact, the reason, Jim, that you're here is because you come down to pick up a '38 Ford. I received a phone call from Josh.
Oh no, that's
Yeah,
Josh Conrad.
he-
That Josh Conrad, he's still with that museum. They haven't let that guy go.
No, he's still
Josh
there.
oh boy.
And he's still there, and he called me and threatened me. He says, I understand that Ron Stauffer told me that you had a truck and trailer down there in Oakland, and that maybe you would be the person that could pick up this Ford down in it's just down the road from you. I said, yeah. He said, looked it up. It's about 175 miles down to Miami, Florida, down past Lake Okeechobee.
And the further you go in Florida,
Yeah.
folks, south, the
I've never
worse
seen
the
so-
traffic is.
I've never seen so much sugar cane in my life. And no, seriously,
It was a nice drive.
it was a beautiful drive down there. We haven't seen that part of Florida.
Yeah.
On the east side of Lake Okeechobee. No, it was great. We took the truck and trailer. I took everything out of my trailer. I did boxes and stuff in there, no problem, and took that out. And we headed to part of Florida we hadn't seen before. So that was great. And we got to meet the people, the donors of this beautiful '38 Ford, and put it in the trailer. And as a matter of fact, the
They
gentleman's
showed
name
us
is.
pictures. He had taken it down to nothing. And
Yeah,
it
he showed the
it was
restoration
really
pictures of the
rusty,
car.
nasty. He did a good job
Yeah,
on it.
he did a great job. Took it clear down to the frame and so on and so forth. And it was a beautiful spring collar. It's a Florida collar. What's not to like on the collar? And this car it was built to drive. It was built to drive. And his son Patrick, I got to get a shout out to Patrick. Drove the car into the trailer and tied her down, and had a few pictures taken with it, and away we went back toward Lakeland, and it sat in the trailer over there for a couple of weeks. And I said, I better get it out and make sure the battery's up on it. And I had a good friend let us use his garage to store the car in because he was gone, and come to find out the car has a 12-volt system in it, so the starter yipped right along. Started right up, and the car drives beautifully, and but we were happy to help out, any way we could, of course.
And you've done other things. You've helped register tours over the years, and
Well, I was a registration chair for a couple of national early Ford meets there at Auburn, and our club worked heavily with that. Almost all the club members, pitched in, and not only, like I said, 141, but the three clubs in Indiana all pitched in, and we all worked hard. It's usually coincided with the ACD auction and so on and so forth. The Auburn Cord Duesenberg. Every September Labor Day weekend, they always had a get together of the Auburn Cords and Duesenbergs, and ours was always a week before that, and when we would have a show and or a meet, and so I was the registration chair for several of those, and usually we had our club president, our local club president, would chair the event, or someone else would chair it. But everybody pitched in. Everybody at our club and the other three clubs always pitched in and helped out, and we made money to keep the foundation going. You got to pay the bills, the heat and the light and so on and so forth, and Josh. You had to pay Josh, by golly. You don't get that kind of labor for free.
yeah, you can only buy so much food, and then he actually has to pay his mortgage at home. I'm going to wrap this up a little bit, but I wanted to ask both of you, and I want you to give me each a separate reply. Why do you think it's really important that people take and donate their time, their energy, their resources to any car club or any car museum? What do you think's the payoff for the public in the larger picture? And I'll ask you both to think about that, and then tell me what you think.
Well, we've got to keep this going for the generations. You know, the automobile. It's a big part of our country, and you know, the history behind it, the Henry Fords and all these people. You know, we've got to keep this alive, and just the camaraderie, you know, and the fulfillment that one feels, you know, getting together and looking at the history, traveling and looking at different parts of the country, and to go together to put something together like the early Ford V8 Foundation and the early Ford Club. You know, the interest there, it's important to keep these things alive, and you know, it's just something we just have to do for the future generations. You know, we've got to keep this going. I hope it, you know, just because we check out one day doesn't mean that this thing has to stop. You know, and it's very fulfilling to work with these people and to work on a common goal, and keeping the foundation going, growing the foundation like they have. And it's pretty exciting to see what's going on at the foundation today. You know, getting ready to build another.
Yeah, they're breaking ground. Yeah.
Getting ready to break ground, and by golly, you know, and part of that is going to be, you know, an educational part of this. I mean, they're going to have classrooms, you know, for, you know, tech sessions, and you know, whether it be a banquet or whatever it might be, in a restoration area, and you know, to see all this and all the library materials they have, the history, you know, telling about the history of the hobby, the Fords, and there's just a lot going on there. And
Candy, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, today all the cars seem to look alike, and the kids will see, you know, a 32 Ford or a 50 Ford or whatever it is, and, you know, ask, what is this? You know, oh, it's a rumble seat. Well, you know, what was that about? And, you know, it's just, their eyes light up, and it's like nothing they've ever seen. And so it's real important to keep the museum going, and we can all help in little ways, you know, just by volunteering, you know, time, and especially when you're retired, that doesn't, you know, cost you anything.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. I'm going to wrap it up here, and I got to say, these folks were reluctant because they don't want the light shined on them. But I told them, people need to hear stories of average people that step up and help out, that find it necessary to keep the lights on and keep the doors open and keep the museum open for the public. And that's what they're doing. Everybody helps out. Everybody turns a wheel. I'm a big believer in that. And thank goodness for people like Pat and Candy for stepping up and helping out. They don't think what they did was a big deal by going and getting this car, but it really was. And it gets it closer to the museum. And someone's going to stop in and enjoy the car, just like they enjoy the other vehicles there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been a long one. Hope you have a good weekend. I hope you have a wonderful Easter Sunday. And that's it for me from the road. And stop by and see the early Ford V8 Foundation Museum in Auburn, Indiana. It's off Interstate 69. It's the closest museum to the interstate. And everybody have a safe weekend.